Hello, my name is Shirley Smith, and I have written this book. The title of it is Life After Death, Resilience in Identity and Revelation During Grief and After Loss. And the purpose of this book was twofold. When I started writing, I wanted to give honor to God with all of the valleys that He was able to take me and my family through. And then the other thing I wanted to do was honor my family. I actually lost all of my family of origin within just a few years, so back to back, and that was difficult. And then on top of that, and in between the losses of my family of origin, I was also losing my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. So altogether about 15 people within a very short period of time. So I took a few years and I decided to write. And this is what came out. Chapter 1, we start out in Egypt, and we're walking through some of the temples and then also tombs. And it's so appropriate for talking about loss. As I used an analogy of the pyramids, the temples in Egypt. When I went there, I found out that there's so much unknown information about how the pyramids got there, the temples and how huge they are, and how did they ever build those temples. And so I think of loss in that same way. When we lose someone in our family, we have to leap into so many things. We have to deal with so many people or professionals that we have not had to deal with before. The attorney. Chapter 2 helps us to recognize where God is during our loss. And it also helps us to recognize that just like if you're on a safari, you need a real guide, someone who has been trained and prepared to be your guide so that you can be safe. During your time of loss, that's God. So let's figure out exactly where He is during our loss. Chapter 3 goes into, as we run into disruptions in our life and injustices, it also talks about how we can further identify who we really are. Not our title, not our roles, but who we really are as God has created us to be. Chapter 4, it's about misplaced leadership. So sometimes we feel called to do a position, or maybe we're just doing a job because we need the money. But leadership is a very serious thing, and so I talk about here that sometimes we're not in place. Perhaps we're trying to lead a group of people that maybe they should be leading us. So leadership is tricky. We should be cognizant of, has God called us truly to do this? Are we prepared to do this? So those are things we need to think about, and that's in chapter 4. Chapter 5, I actually have listed as a chapter where I'll talk about miracles of God. Now, actually, you'll find out all the way through the book, I will mention some of the miracles that I've experienced during my life's journey with God. But chapter 5, I'm actually talking more about how God is introducing us to our new identity, because as we go through disruptions in life, as we go through injustices, as we lose our family, as we lose loved ones, we then tend to lose our identity. And then when someone asks you who you are, you really are confused about what your true identity is. But in chapter 5, hopefully, when you read this, you'll be able to see how God is actually showing you who you are. 6, where I say, acknowledging the unacknowledged. Actually going into things like my mother wanting to make sure that after she was gone that somebody knew some of the things that she accomplished. And I totally agree that we need to keep history and make it available for the next generation. Things that were hidden from us in plain sight. While looking up information for my father, he was actually in World War II, and he was with the particular battalion. It was the 1883rd Engineer Aviation Battalion. And I learned something very important. And in this book, I talk about it. This is where I found out his face is now among the Wall of Honor. And this is with regards to building the Lato Road. And 60% of those building that road, of the 15,000 men, were African Americans. I found out from the museum in New Orleans that the Lato Road the building of that road actually was one of the major reasons why we won World War II. And the last chapter talks about ways to get to resilience, and one is most definitely by being thankful for your family. So we all should have a book about our family and the history, and it all should be in the Library of Congress. Place right now, we're in America. We're not sure that we want to give all the accurate history that exists. We're not sure that we want to include all cultures' history. And so it is up on us to deal with the history of our own families, to create, to write, and to place it in the Library of Congress, the history of our families. This has been Shirley Smith, the author of Life After Death, Resilience, Identity, and Revelations During Grief and After Loss.